The Cowboys must weigh the franchise tag options for Randy Gregory and Dalton Schultz. Now, in the previous year, since 2020, the Cowboys been utilizing the franchise tag on Dak Prescott. The first in 2020, it was $31.4 million. You guys remember he played on that franchise tag. And then to follow up the following year of 2021, pretty much 37.7. They come under an agreement for him to sign a $160 million contract, which part of that $160 million, $126 million was guaranteed out of Dak Prescott contract, right? So that's how they utilized the franchise tag before. Now, heading into the 2022 season, and I get it, right? A lot of people look at it and say, well, no, Dak Prescott got paid his money, but they still signed him under the contract of the franchise tag. How this thing works, Cowboy Nation, is that they got until today, until March the 8th, to come up with an agreement with with Randy Gregory. And speaking of DeMarcus, the last time they used a franchise tag on the defensive side of the coin was DeMarcus Lawrence. They franchised him twice, and at the end, they figured it out, and they signed him under a long-term contract for 5 years. But neither here nor there. They got until March the 8th. They have mid-June to work out a long-term contract, meaning that they can still sign you under a franchise tag. They can still tag you. And then they got into mid-June to work out a contract. If not, they'll have to play on a franchise tag deal. So you guys understand that? You got until March 8th to franchise tag a player. And then you can franchise tag them, and you can work out a long-term contract until mid-June. And that's what the Cowboys did with DeMarcus Lawrence, and that's what the Cowboys did with Dak Prescott. So those two things right there. If we look back at everything, DeMarcus Lawrence, he followed up with his first year, 14.5 sacks. You guys remember that, right? And then the following year, he still wanted Khalil Mack's money, and of course, he got just that, right close to those numbers there. His following year, he had 10 sacks. And that was the last time D-Law had double-digit sacks, right? But neither here nor there. He signed a 5-year, $105 million contract in April the 9th of 2019, as reported. Now, when we fast forward and we talk about Randy Gregory, he matched his season high sack total of 6 last season. That's a season high. He's not a double-digit sack guy, unfortunately. And the Cowboys are playing on the mindset that, hey, maybe he come back just because we were able to help him out because of his substance abuse with the NFL policies. And now that stuff is swept under the rug, I don't know what he would do. I don't know if he will give the Cowboys that discount that they're looking for. And I'm quite sure they would love for him to say, hey, we at Randy Gregory camp would not demand high numbers. However, the salary cap and everything, this is what we got to fight up against, right? And Stephen Jones, his salary cap mind. The other part of it is that since that time frame, the franchise tag for defensive edge guys increased. It increased all the way up to $20 million. It's $20.05 right now. They don't have the final numbers for franchise tags for defensive edge guys, but it's the estimate that it will be right at 20.5. And it's probably a good thing or it's a bad thing, but I can tell you it's a bad thing as it relates to the Cowboys. I just don't think that the Cowboys are willing to spend $20 million for Randy Gregory, and I could be 1,000,000% wrong, but his highest sack totals is 6 sacks. And of course, we understand the trifecta: DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy Gregory, put Parsons around, and on third down situations and scenario, maybe you can slide him on the right or the left side, or still keep him shooting through the A gap, or B gap. So that is what they're gonna have to figure out with Randy Gregory. Now, on the flip side, Dalton Schultz, his first 2 seasons with the Cowboys, he was considered only a blocking tight end. And Dalton Schultz's situation is that the last 2 seasons, he's up there with Jason Witten as it relates to his record setting with the Cowboys. 2 back-to-back seasons with north of 70 receptions and north of 700 yards. That put him in the same graces of the tight end Jason Witten, because that's the stat line in the past that they like to look at. And with 78 receptions and 808 yards this past season, he joins Jason Witten as the second tight end in team history with at least 70 catches and 800 yards. So to be mentioned in the same number system of Jason Witten goes a long way, right? But here's the problem. And according to stats or what have you, Schultz only dropped 2 passes this season, this past season. So that's not bad as well. So when they look at his comparables as far as his numbers for the 2021 season and the previous season, they got him right up there with George Kittle's. Let that sink in. Now, the tight end room, far as what the Cowboys should be looking at in the free agency, you got Gerald Everett, you got Evan Ingram, you got O.J. Howard, you also got David Njoku, Zach Ertz, now that's a story of a different day, and Mike Gesicki. You got all of these guys that's similar as relates to numbers of Dalton Schultz. Now, Dalton Schultz camp, they're looking for, I believe, now it's a little bit cheaper. It's not $20 million on a franchise tag for a tight end. It's right at $12 to $13 million at the franchise tag. Well, his market value for Dalton Schultz is right at $12 to $13 million. So should the Cowboys do? Should they dance in the free agency, or should they go into the draft and say, okay, we'll pull somebody from the draft and develop him? Because it's not like, and I'm not selling or denigrating Dalton Schultz, but it's not like it's a very unique situation or a scheme that you use in Dalton Schultz. But for fairness, Dalton Schultz been the sure hands catcher. He's been the third down machine for the Cowboys, and he's been finding soft spots in the zone and taking advantages of that situation. So now that we look at everything, the Cowboys, I don't think that they're going to use both franchise tags, this year. And here's a breakdown of Schultz's run block percentages. His run block rate is 72.9, right? His pass block rate is 93.2. And to compare those numbers to a George Kittle's run block rate is 73.7, and his pass block rate is 97.8. So you're pretty much splitting hairs, right, as far as the numbers. And then we got to go down the line of looking at Blake Jarwin. The Cowboys already signed him, so and in the past 2 seasons since he's been signed, he's been on a downward spiral, right? One was on an upward spiral, and then when one got signed, the other went on a downward spiral. So that's crazy. So currently, the Cowboys are projected to be $20 million over the cap for the 2022 season. Before you guys panic, most teams are right now over the cap. There are going to be some cuts. There are going to be some more restructures that go along. And, of course, teams will get up under the cap. To me personally, it just seems as if, though, it's a recipe for disaster, because the Cowboys, not to take those risks, the Cowboys tend to sign their own guys and say, hey, we did sign guys in the free agency. So it's a situation now we can't wait to see who they're going to restructure, what hard cuts they're going to do to make the justification. And on top of that, with the salary cap being that it is, we'll find out who they see more valuable, Randy Gregory or Dalton Schultz. In my mind, here it is, in my mind, I think the Cowboys should figure out a way to squeeze Randy Gregory back on his team. And far as the Dalton Schultz, I think that you can find a competitive tight end in the free agency, whether it be David Njoku, O.J. Howard, even if it's Evan Ingram. And I know Evan Ingram can't catch nothing, right? But I'm quite sure that the respect of his route running and his ability to crease it inside the middle of the field, team's going to have to pay a great deal of respect for that. And sometimes a change of scenery, a different environment can improve you. Post me your thoughts, post me your concerns down below. That's been my time. I really thank you all for yours. And remember, you're listening to nothing but the best.